featureless. People generally don't build launch facilities next to anything important, for obvious reasons. I missed my kids. Dozens of them. Hundreds, really, over the course of a school year. They didn't swear at me or wake me up in the middle of the night. Their squabbles were usually resolved within a few minutes, either by a teacher-enforced handshake or detention, and somewhat selfish, but here it is. They looked up to me. I missed being that respected. I sighed. My kids would have a rough time, even if the mission worked. It would take 13 years for the Hail Mary to get to Tau Ceti, and presuming the crew found an answer to our problems, another 13 years for the Beatles to get back to us. That's over a quarter century before we would even know what to do. My kids wouldn't be kids anymore when it was over. Onward, I mumbled and grabbed the next problem report. Why was it on paper instead of just an email? Because Russians do things a certain way and it's easier to work with them than to complain about it. The report was from the ESA crew about anomalies in slurry pump 14 of the medical feeding transport system. Pump 14 was only part of the tertiary system, and it was still 95% effective, but there was no reason to put up with that. We still had 83 kilograms of unclaimed launch mass. I made a note to include a spare slurry pump. It was only 250 grams. The crew could install it before leaving orbit. I set the paper aside and saw a brief flash out my window. Probably a jeep driving on the dirt road that led to the temporary shelters. I got headlights through my window from time to time. I ignored it. The next paper in my stack was all about potential ballast issues. The Hail Mary kept its center of mass along its long axis by pumping astrophage around as needed, but we still wanted to keep things as balanced as possible anyway. The ESA crew had rearranged several supply bags in the storage compartment to more adequately balance. The window shattered as a deafening explosion shook the room. Glass shards nicked my face as a shockwave knocked me clean out of my chair. After that, silence. And then sirens in the distance. I got to my knees and then to my feet. I opened and closed my mouth a few times to pop my ears. I stumbled to the door and opened it. The first thing I noticed was that the small triplet of steps that once led to my door were several feet away. Then I saw the freshly disturbed earth between the steps and my door, and I understood what happened. The steps are anchored into the ground with 4x4s sunk deep like fence posts. My portable has no such support. My whole house moved, and the stairs stayed put. "Grace, are you okay?" It was Strat's voice. Her portable was next to mine. "Yeah," I say. "What the heck was that?" "I don't know," she said. "Hang on." Shortly after, I saw the bobbing of a flashlight. She came to me, wearing a bathrobe and boots. She was already on her walkie-talkie. "Это Strat. Что случилось?" she demanded. "Взрыв в исследовательском центре," came the reply. "The research center blew up," she said. Baikonur was a launch facility, but they did have some research buildings. They weren't laboratories, they were more like classrooms. Astronauts generally spent a week before launch at Baikonur, and they usually wanted to study and prepare right up to launch day. "Oh, God," I said. "Who was there?" "Who was there?" She pulled a wad of papers from her robe pocket. Hang on." She rifled through the papers, throwing each to the ground as she moved on to the next. I knew what they were at a glance. I'd been seeing them every day for a year, schedule charts, showing where everyone was and what they were doing at all times. She stopped when she reached the page she was looking for. She actually gasped. "Dubois and Shapiro. They're scheduled to be there doing some astrophage experiments." I put my hands on my head. No, please, no. The research center is 5 kilometers away. If the blast did this much damage to us here... I know. She flicked on her walkie-talkie again. Prime crew, I need your locations. Call them in. Yeah, here, came the first reply. In my bunk. Ilyukhna here at officer's bar. What was that explosion? Strat and I waited for the response we hoped would come. Dubois, she said. Dubois, check in. Silence. Shapiro. Dr. Annie Shapiro, check in. More silence. She took a deep breath and let it out. She clicked the walkie-talkie on one more time. Strat to transport. I need a jeep to take me to ground control. Copy, came the reply. The next few hours were, frankly, chaos. The entire base was put on lockdown for a while and everyone's ID was checked. For all we knew, some doomsday cult wanted to sabotage the mission, but nothing turned up amiss. Strat, Dmitri, and I sat in the bunker. Why were we in a bunker? The Russians were taking no chances. It didn't look like a terrorist attack, but they were securing the critical personnel just in case. Yao and Ilyukhna were off in some other bunker. The other science leads were in other bunkers as well. Spread everyone out so there's no single place to attack that would be effective. There was a grim logic to it. Baikonur was built during the Cold War, after all. The research buildings are a crater, said Strat, and there's still no sign of Dubois or Shapiro, or the 14 other staff that worked there. She pulled up pictures on her phone and showed them to us. The photos told a story of utter destruction. The area was lit up with powerful floodlights the Russians had set up, and the place was swarming with rescue personnel, though there was nothing for them to do. Virtually nothing was left. No debris, limited wreckage. Strat swiped through photo after photo. Some were close-ups of the ground. Round, shiny beads dotted the area. What's up with the beads? She said. Metal condensate, Dmitri said. It means metals were vaporized, then condensed like raindrops. Jesus, she said. I sighed. There's only one thing in those labs that could create enough heat to vaporize metal. Astrophage. I agree, said Dmitri. But astrophage does not just explode. How could this happen? Strat looked at her wrinkled schedule pages. According to this, Dubois wanted more experience with astrophage-powered electrical generators. Shapiro was there to observe and assist. That makes no sense, I said. Those generators use a tiny, tiny bit of astrophage to make electricity, nowhere near enough to blow up a building. She put her phone down. We've lost our primary and secondary science specialists. This is nightmare, said Dmitri. Dr. Grace, I want a short list of possible replacements. I stared with my mouth agape. Are you made of stone or something? Our friends just died. Yes, and everyone else will die too, if we don't make this mission happen. We have 9 days to find a replacement science specialist. I well up. Dubois. Shapiro. I snuffled and wiped my eyes. They're dead. They're dead. Oh, God. Strat slapped me. Snap out of it. Hey, cry later. Mission first. You still have that list of coma-resistant candidates from last year? Start looking through it. We need a new science specialist, and we need them now. Gathering sample now, I say. Rocky watches me from his tunnel in the lab ceiling. His device works just as it should. The clear xenonite box has a couple of valves and pumps that let me control the inside environment. The vacuum chamber is inside with its lid open. The box even has climate control, keeping the inside temperature a chilly minus 51 degrees Celsius. Rocky admonished me for leaving the sample at human room temperature for so long. He had a lot to say on that subject, actually. We had to add reckless, idiot, foolish, and irresponsible to our shared vocabulary, just so he could fully express his opinion on the matter. There was another word he threw around a lot, but he declined to tell me what it meant. 3 days off the painkillers, and I'm a lot smarter than I was. At least he understands that much. I wasn't just some stupid human. I was a human with enhanced stupidity. Rocky refused to give me the box I'm using until I slept 3 times without using the drugs. My arm hurts so bad right now, but he's got a point. Rocky healed a fair bit in that time, too. I have no idea what's going on inside his body. He looks the same as ever, but he's moving around much better than before. Not full speed, though. Neither am I. We're the walking wounded, honestly. By agreement, we've kept the gravity at 1/2 G. I open and close the claws in the box a few times. Look at me, I'm an Iridian now. Yes, very Iridian. Hurry and get sample. You're no fun. I grab the cotton swab and bring it to a waiting glass slide. I rub it across the slide, leaving a noticeable smear, then return it to the vacuum chamber. I seal up the chamber, put the slide in a little clear xenonite container, and seal the box. Okay, that should do it. I turn the valves to let my air in, then open the box from above. The slide is safe in its xenonite container, the galaxy's smallest little spaceship, at least from the point of view of any Adrian life that may be present. I walk to the microscope station. Rocky follows along in the tunnel above. You certain you can see light so small, question? Yes. Old technology. Very old. I put the container on the tray and adjust the lenses. The xenonite is plenty clear enough for the microscope to see through. Okay, Adrian, what do you have for me? I put my face to the eyepieces. The most obvious thing is the astrophage. As usual, they're jet black, absorbing all light. That's expected. I adjust the backlight and focus, and I see microbes everywhere. One of my favorite experiments with the kids is to have them look at a drop of water. A drop of water, preferably one from a puddle outside, will be swarming with life. It always goes over well, except for the occasional kid who then refuses to drink water for a while. Lots of life in here, I say. Different kinds. Good. Expected. Of course there would be. Any planet that has life will have it everywhere. That's my theory, at least. Evolution is extremely good at filling every nook in the ecosystem. Right now I'm looking at hundreds of unique life forms never before seen by humans. Each one an alien race. I can't help but smile. Still, I have work to do. I pan around until I find a nice clump of astrophage. If there's a predator to be had, it'll be where the astrophage is. Otherwise, it'd be a pretty bad predator. I flick on the microscope's internal camera. The image appears on a little LCD screen. I adjust the screen and set it recording. This could take time, I say. Need to see interaction between— Whoa! I shove my face back to the microscope to get a better look. It only took seconds before the astrophage fell under attack. Am I incredibly lucky, or is this life form just that aggressive? Rocky skittered back and forth above me. What question? What happened, question? The monster lurches toward the clump of astrophage. It's an amorphous blob like an amoeba. It presses itself against its much smaller prey and begins to envelop the entire clump of them by oozing around both sides. The astrophage wriggle. They know something is wrong. They try to escape, but it's too late. They can only sputter a short distance before they stop. Normally, astrophage can accelerate to near light speed in seconds, but these can't. Maybe a chemical excretion by the monster that disables them somehow? The encirclement completes and the astrophage are surrounded. A few seconds later, the astrophage becomes cell-like in appearance, no longer featureless black. Their organelles and membranes are starkly visible in the microscope's light. They have lost their ability to absorb heat and light energy. They're dead. Got it, I say. I found the predator. It ate astrophage right in front of me. Found! Rocky cheers. Isolate! Yes, I'll isolate it, I say. Happy, 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 he says. Now you name. I grab a nanopipette from the supply. I don't follow. Earth culture, you find, you name. What is name of predator question? Oh, I say. I'm not feeling creative at the moment. This is too exciting to take my attention away from. It's an amoeba from Tau Ceti. Talmoeba, I guess. Talmoeba, the savior of Earth and Arid. Hopefully. I should have a bolo tie, maybe a cowboy hat, because I'm a rancher now, and I'm running about 50 million head of Talmoeba on my ranch. Once I isolated a few Talmoeba from the Adrian air sample, Rocky built a breeder tank and we let them get to work. It's just a xenonite box full of Adrian air and a few 100 grams of astrophage. As far as we can tell, Talmoeba is very resilient to temperature variations. Good thing, too, because I let it sit at room temperature that one day. Drugs are bad. In retrospect, it makes sense that they'd be robust on temperature. They live in a negative 51 degrees Celsius environment and eat astrophage, which is always 96.415 degrees Celsius. Hey, everyone likes a hot meal, right? And boy, do they breed. Well, I gave them a mother load of astrophage to work with. It's the same as throwing yeast into a bottle of sugar water, but instead of making booze, we're making more Talmoebas. Now that we have enough to experiment with, I get to work. If you take a goat and put it on Mars, what happens? It dies. Immediately. And horribly. Goats didn't evolve to live on Mars. Okay, so what happens if you put a Talmoeba on a planet other than Adrian? That's what I want to find out. Rocky watches from his tunnel above the main work table as I simulate a fresh, new atmosphere in my vacuum chamber. "No have oxygen question?" he asked. "No oxygen." "Oxygen dangerous." He's been a little edgy since his internal organs caught fire. "I breathe oxygen. It's okay." "Can explode." I pull my goggles off and look up at him. "There's no oxygen in this experiment. Calm down." "Yes, calm." I get back to work. I turn a valve to let a small bit of gas into the vacuum chamber. I check the pressure gauge to make sure that "Again confirm no oxygen question." I jerk my head up to glare at him. "It's just carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Only carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Nothing more. Don't ask me again." "Yes, no ask again, sorry." Can't blame him, I guess. Being on fire sucks. We have 2 planets to deal with here. No, not Earth and Arid. Those are just the planets we live on. The planets we care about right now are Venus and 3-world. That's where astrophage is breeding out of control. Venus, of course, is the second planet in my solar system. It's about Earth's size with a thick carbon dioxide atmosphere. 3-world is the third planet in Rocky's home system. At least 3-world is what I call it. The Iridians don't have a name for it, even in their own language, just a designation, Planet 3. They didn't have ancient people looking up at astronomical bodies and naming them after gods. They only discovered other planets in their system a few hundred years ago. But I don't want to say Planet 3 all the time, so I've named it 3-world. The hardest part about working with aliens and saving humanity from extinction is constantly having to come up with names for stuff. 3-world is a tiny little planet, only about the size of Earth's moon, but unlike our airless neighbor, 3-world somehow has an atmosphere. How? I have no idea. The surface gravity is only 0.2 Gs, which shouldn't be enough, yet somehow Three World manages to hang on to a thin atmosphere. According to Rocky, it's 84% carbon dioxide, 8% nitrogen, 4% sulfur dioxide, and a bunch of trace gases, all with a surface pressure less than 1% of Earth's. I check the readouts and nod approvingly. I do a visual inspection of the experiment inside. I'm pretty proud of myself for this idea. A thin coat of astrophage sits on a glass plate. I coated the plate by shining IR light through the glass and attracting astrophage from the other side. It's the same way the spin drive does it. The result is a uniform layer of astrophage that's just one cell thick. Then I seeded the slide with Talmiba. As they eat the astrophage, the currently opaque slide will become more and more transparent. It's a hell of a lot easier to measure light level than a quantity of microscopic organisms. Okay, the chamber has Venus's upper atmosphere duplicated, as good as I can anyway. I figure the breeding zone of astrophage is based mainly on the air pressure. Basically, they have to aerobrake from near light speed when they hit the planet, but being so small, that doesn't take very long, and of course they gobble up all the heat that's created. The end result is that astrophage come to rest when the air is 0.02 atmospheres thick. So going forward, that'll be our standard for pressure. Venus's atmosphere is 0.02 atmospheres at around the 70-kilometer mark, and the temperature there is about minus 100 degrees Celsius. Thanks, infinite supply of reference material. So that's the temperature I have the Venus analog experiment set to. Rocky's temperature control system works perfectly, of course, even down to ultra-low temperatures. Good. Now 3 World. What temperature is 3 World's air at the 0.02 atmosphere altitude?
Minus 82 degrees of Celsius.
Okay, thanks, I say. I move to the next chamber. It has an identical setup of astrophage and Talmiba. I let in the appropriate gases to simulate 3 Worlds' atmosphere and temperature at the 0.02 atmosphere pressure area. I get the relevant information from Rocky's perfect memory. It's not much different from Venus or Adrian, mostly carbon dioxide with some other gases running around. No surprise there. Astrophage go for the biggest concentration of CO2 they can see. It's a good thing these planets aren't covered in helium or something. I don't have any of that aboard, but carbon dioxide, that's easy. I make that stuff with my body. And nitrogen? Thanks to Dubois and his preferred method of death, there's a whole bunch aboard. 3 World does have some sulfur dioxide, though, 4% of the total atmosphere. It's enough that I didn't want to approximate it away, so I had to make some. The lab has quite a selection of reagents, but no sulfur dioxide gas. However, it does have sulfuric acid in solution. I recovered some copper tubing from a broken cooling coil in the freezer and used it as a catalyst. Worked like a charm to create the sulfur dioxide I needed. Okay, 3 Worlds done, I say. We'll wait an hour and check results.
We have hope,
says Rocky. Yes, we have hope, I say. Talmiba are very sturdy. They can live in a near vacuum, and they seem comfortable in extreme cold. Maybe Venus and 3 World are habitable for them. They're good enough for Talmiba's prey, so why not for Talmiba?
Yes, things are good. All is good.
Yeah, for once, everything's going great. Then the lights go out.